Hello, this is Pastor Manning welcoming you again to the Beacon of Hope podcast. We are looking at the third in a series on true greatness. It's a series on the life of Mordecai, who is a man who was elevated greatly by the Lord, and yet greatness did not corrupt him. That's an unusual thing in life, and it's worth studying for sure. The first of the series was entitled True Greatness. The first in that series was Great in Love. And we saw his abiding and obvious love towards Queen Esther. Then we saw greatness and wise counsel and learned some things about that, both what wise counsel is and how it should be used in someone's life. Today, we'll talk about the fact that he had greatness that inspired love and loyalty. What's interesting, he didn't have loyalty because of manipulation or intimidation. In fact, the man who wanted to destroy Mordecai, a man in the book of Esther by the name of Haman, that man tried to establish loyalty and following by intimidation, by prideful means and such. And those that he sought to have follow him turned on him in a heartbeat. You can read about it. Even his wife, Teresh, and those who came, They turned on him. They listened to his prideful boastings and told him, "Oh, do whatever you want. You're great. You can do whatever you want." And then things changed, and they said, "Oh, you're heading for disaster. It's going to be all over for you." And that quickly they turned away from him. Why? Because when they believed that he could no longer exert power or could no longer advance them or could no longer affect them for good or for ill, they turned on him. There was nothing there. But there's quite the opposite with Mordecai, especially when it comes to the case of Esther, and that is when she no longer could be influenced by him directly, when he no longer had power over her life, when he no longer could actually cause her to do good or do bad, she still followed his leadership in those areas which were good and right and proper because there was love that had inspired her. She was inspired to loyalty. She was inspired to love. She wanted to follow this man. She didn't have to. And you say, "Well, preacher, what's your evidence of that?" Well, the evidence is found in verse in chapter 2 and verse 20 of the book of Esther, and it has to do with the fact that Esther did not tell the people that she was Jewish. Here's the way it's written in the Word of God. It says, "Esther had not yet showed her kindred nor her people, as Mordecai had charged her, for Esther did the commandment of Mordecai like as when she was brought up with him." And that was pretty amazing if you realize that just before that, in verse 17, it said, "And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti." She is now the queen of one of the most powerful kingdoms that ever existed in the ancient world. She is now the queen to a monarch who rules over 127 provinces. And 3 verses later, it ends with saying, "Esther did the commandment of Mordecai like as when she was brought up with him." It wasn't because she was lacking in her development. It wasn't because she did not know how to stand on her own. She had power now. She had wealth now. She had actually authority over Mordecai since she was the queen. The evidence of that's given in chapter 4 and verse 17, where it's recorded, "So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him." And so even in her, at that point, exalted and powerful position, she still sought to do his commandments. She sought to follow what this man taught her and what he had put inside of her. Why? Because of loyalty and because of love that was reciprocal, because it was evident that Mordecai loved Esther and that he led her. And by the way, part of the evidence of the relationship showed up later when Mordecai had to speak very plainly to her and tell her truthfully that God was going to deliver his people. She had a chance to be an integral part of that. But if she didn't, that she and her household, her father's household, would suffer the brunt of what happened, and God would find someone else to deliver his people. And so Mordecai had obviously been loving. He obviously was truthful. He obviously dealt in a respectful and yet an honest way with her. And what happened because of that? She loved him, and she was loyal to him, and his influence for good in her life continued on past his immediate oversight of her. God help us to so love and to so be truthful with people that our influence in their life can extend past our personal sphere of influence in day-by-day circumstances. May we use it for good, and may we use it for the Lord. Mordecai did, and I think in that we find a great lesson of what true greatness is. It's not a position. It's definitely not being able to make people do what you want or make people follow you. It has to do with a reality of love, truthfulness, and integrity that inspires in good-hearted people a love and a loyalty that may be used then to help them be a blessing and a help, and maybe even a deliverance to other people. Think on these things, and may God give you a great day.